In addition to manipulating the notes in the key editor and using MIDI functions, we can also apply some real-time MIDI effects using MIDI inserts and MIDI modifiers. Now, if you can't see the MIDI modifiers tab, just right-click anywhere in the left zone and make sure that the MIDI modifiers tab is ticked. So let's begin with the modifiers first. Now, there are quite a few options here, but I'm going to show you the most useful ones. Now, as we looked at earlier, it's possible to transpose MIDI in a part in real time without altering the actual source notes. We can also do that from the transpose slider in the MIDI modifiers. Now, of course, the first benefit to this is that any changes are applied across the entire track, so you don't need to remember to go in and change the transposition for all of your different parts. But this is also applied in real time. So on my keyboard, I'm playing a C, but if I bump the transpose up while still playing the C, that transposition is applied in real time. So this is really useful if, say, you're more comfortable playing in C major or A minor, but the song is in a sharp or a flat key. Another really useful feature is randomization. So let's take a listen to this drum beat again. So it sounds okay and it's got dynamics and it's quite interesting, but it's also very stiff and robotic. Now, there are various different ways that you could move those notes about. You could go into the MIDI part, disable snap, and then adjust the notes by hand, but obviously that would take a very long time. What we can do instead is enable random position, and then set a minimum and maximum value in ticks, which is the smallest unit of quantization. So let's try plus or minus 8. So you hear that although the notes have remained quantized to the musical grid, the MIDI modifiers is applying humanization in real time. And to really hear that in action, I'm just going to set this to some extremes. And again, this is all applied in real time and non-destructively. So I'll set these back to a bit more of a sensible value. Now, if you wanted to make this effect permanent, you could go up to MIDI, freeze MIDI modifiers, and you'll see here that the note position has been altered in the key editor. Also, the MIDI modifier has been reset and disabled. Now, as well as MIDI modifiers, we also have access to MIDI inserts. And like modifiers, these are applied in real time and non-destructively. As you can see, there are many MIDI inserts to choose from, so I won't go through them all. But of course you have the standards such as arpeggiators, and personally I prefer the Apache SX. There's also a MIDI monitor, which is useful for diagnosing problems with your MIDI controller. There's even a real-time MIDI quantizer, and this is useful again for applying non-destructive swing or quantization to your MIDI parts. So I'll begin by recording a simple arpeggio. And then I'll just trim this part down and set my cycle range. Now let's listen to what happens when I increase the swing amount. So as with the MIDI modifiers, you'll see that the actual MIDI data itself isn't being changed, and then the swing is being applied in real time. Now, as I said, there are many MIDI inserts available, so it's best to just take a little time, go through each one, and learn how it works and how it might be useful to you. Finally, as with MIDI modifiers, any MIDI inserts can be frozen into the MIDI part by using the freeze MIDI modifiers function. So let's leave it here for now, and I'll return shortly.